It's breathtaking, isn't it, Joan?
Oh, yeah.
Just beautiful.
The trees, the
Spanish moss.
the Spanish moss is just gorgeous.
It's stunning. Joan and I are at Fort Frederica, St. Simon's Island. Founded in 1736. Wow. This is where Oglethorpe established the first colony of Georgia. It's been a great trip. South Carolina last week. Just 3 days here in Georgia. But wait till you see this place. It's really, really interesting. Unfortunately, the fort is pretty much just kind of like some foundation ruins, but still a pretty area, and I think you're going to enjoy seeing it. So Joan and I are going to walk down here. It's a Monday, end of August, last week. Us and 2 other folks are all that's here. Good for us. It's breathtaking, isn't it, Joan?
Oh, yeah.
Just beautiful.
The trees, the
Spanish moss.
the Spanish moss is just gorgeous.
It's stunning. Now, most of the houses you're going to see as we walk around, they're all gone. We'll do a close-up. About all you can see is just kind of markers, these concrete markers where they may have been. And then you see some defenses that were built here. You can see those, the kind of a big ditch, if that makes out here in the video. And this gives you an idea what Fort Frederica looked like. So it was actually a little town you see here. You can see where the lots were at. And then right up at the end at the Fort Frederica River, you can see where the fort was actually at. And they landed here February 18th of 1736. How about that? 40 years before the Declaration of Independence. Isn't that something? But look over there. Just, look at these trees. You know how I am about trees. I just go crazy over these things. Look. I bet some of these things here, looking at the width of them, what do you think, Joan? Maybe 250, 300 years old? Just amazing.
I know they're older than I am.
Older than Joan. So Joan discovered something interesting. Thanks, Joan. This is the actual old moat. You can see it's kind of eroded over time. And you can see where the moat was at right here. It's kind of a slight indention if you barely see that to the right. And this is the beginning of what they call the palisades, which would have been, your spiked walls and earthworks. I'm assuming no trees were on this back 300 years ago. Took them something like, what was it, Joan? 3 years? 3 years to build all this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So if you look here in front, running all the way down, way off into the distance, we'll go down there to the last remnants of the old fort. This was actually a small town. So you can see this was Broad Street. This was the main street. This would have been yards. And then if you notice, I think you can make those out in the video, you can see small little wooden stakes in the ground, and that's where actual homes were located. And now this will show you how small these houses were during this period. This was from Mary Musgrove Matthews. Now here is the lot of the home. Left-hand side would have been maybe the sleeping quarters, the right-hand side, the fireplace. And here are the actual ruins. This is made out of tabby that you can see here. Can't step on this, but right here, I'll walk around. You can see the foundation of the fireplace here. You can barely make it out. But this was what they lived in. Amazing how teeny these structures were. Just amazing. You can see how small. Oh my goodness, I'm guessing maybe 100 to 150 square feet, maybe, without stepping it off. Very teeny. And you can actually see these as we walk down Broad Street here. There's other foundations of other homes, and they know from the records who lived in these homes. So here's another, and then another. You can see them down through here. Shoemaker or soldier. So they knew some of these things that were... There's actually a larger house that's over here in the distance. We'll look at those a little closer. I'm going to pause here just a second and do a very slow pan of this area, just so you can see how, gosh, breathtakingly gorgeous it is. And I mean, there's some live oaks here that are probably 6 feet thick. I'm going to guess that old. They may have been here when the settlers were here. But look at this. This was the town. Amazing. Some kind of pretty, y'all. So even in 1736, sometime thereafter when these houses were built, you see the evidence of a duplex. And they had a baker on one side and a carpenter on the other. And I would imagine that big, giant, massive tree may have been in their backyard then. Much smaller though. Wow. We're coming up on Cross Street. So what's interesting about this area, you can see how wide this is for the wagons. This is the remnant, very little remnant, of Fort Frederica. It was never tore down, but just time and weather just wore it down. And this was where the Spanish were held off and what they call the Bloody Marsh. You can see where the cannon placements were, and then I'll kind of turn around here slow. You can barely make out over that little hill there. That was a moat that protected the town. You can actually see the outlines of the fort here. But the fort was surrounded by a moat, as was the town. And then you had marshes on both sides. This is just so cool. There's Miss Joan, and you can see where the cannons were placed. Unfortunately, just time after time, some of this has had to be rebuilt just to kind of give you an idea of what may have been here, but you would have had gun placements on top. And this was the high ground of the area. We can't go inside. They don't want you to damage it. It's just so old. That's about all that's left of 1736 Fort Frederica. How about that? Time and weather just got it. This is Frederica River. So again, here's the fort. And some history that we found here from the journals of John Wesley, April 11th, 1736. He talked about preaching here in the storehouse. This was the storehouse of the fort. For those of us who are Methodist, this was the foundation right here in 1736. Another little piece of history. Look at this though. Wow. That's really something, isn't it? Just gorgeous. Well, this is all that remains of the barracks for the 200 British soldiers who lived here during the period. And after the Battle of the Bloody Marsh, this was also where they kept the Spanish prisoners of war, the couple that they captured and then let go. Interesting. Right on the far corner, if you notice, away from all the houses where everybody lived. I'm sure there's a story there. But here again, you can see where all the homes were at. And then way, 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 way off to the distance between those trees is the fort. Some interesting history here. If you get a chance to come to coastal Georgia as you're going down 95, we're staying up at Darien at Inland Harbor RV Park. I'll put a link up here so you can see that. And nice little place to stay in. We kind of launched from there. It was a nice campground, very reasonable. But getting back here, we've got a few more things that we're going to look at. We're going to zip down here to Christ Episcopal Church. And we understand that goes back into a very, very long period of time, and might be some fun things to see down there as well. Come on along, let's see what we can find. Well, off in the distance, you'll see Christ Episcopal Church. This was the formation of John and Charles Wesley back in the early 1600s. And actually, you can hear a lot of racket off into the background. Unfortunately, the grounds are closed on Mondays for maintenance and funerals and those types of things. I would have loved to have been able to take you onto the grounds. It's just not going to happen today. The interesting thing, Joan and I did this years and years and years ago. And as you go back into the back, you can see graves from the early 1700s, people born in the 1600s. It's really quite spectacular. I hope you get a chance to come and see the grounds and peek inside the old church. It's really something to see. Well, this is the St. Simon's Lighthouse. We're excited about being able to go in and see this. We get to go into the innkeeper's house here and find out some interesting history about this, and then I think I'm going to try to manage going up to the top. So we're going to hook around here to the side, Joan. This is, we're in the lower part of the innkeeper's house, and this would have been his living quarters with his family. This is not the original building or the original tower that was blown up by the Confederate troops during the Civil War. This was built in the 1870s. And it's really interesting. You can still see a lot of artifacts like, brushes, and look at this. You can even see cups and saucers. The official United States Lighthouse Service Cup and Saucer. Yes, they had one. Well, what's so interesting is, the pictures of the different folks that were here during that period. Carl Olaf Svensson and his wife Annie and 2 children from 1909. There's a picture of the lighthouse from 1910. Isn't that interesting? This is another room downstairs, common area, and it just shows, all the different things they used. From candles to kerosene, whale oil, and then into the modern days of electric light. And just interesting pictures here of showing life on the island from the early 1800s. And just the artifacts that's been found here, from silver spoons. Interesting. Look at this. Look at this. There is the famous golfer, Bobby Jones from Sea Lion Golf Club. And the Closters. Oh, lots of history here. And then you actually see the tools of the trade during the kerosene oil days, for the lamp oil. All right, let's go upstairs. So we're upstairs now in the innkeeper's home. This is really some old pieces in here. This is the innkeeper's bedroom. I don't know how much of this is original, but it's very period. Some of this is. You can see that bookcase. I can't go inside here and walk around, but you can see where he would have managed his logs. Isn't that interesting? And of course, they were here by themselves. There were no one around. You can see, clothes had to make for the kids. Isn't that something? You can walk over here. Here's a parlor. When you think about it, there was nobody living on these islands. Many times they were by themselves. You can see the old coal-fired heating. And I don't know what that is over there that would have been played, old harpsichord. Look at this. Isn't this interesting? What's over here, Jen? Another bedroom? Kids' room?
Kitchen. That's the children's room.
Oh, children's room's over here. Oh, look at this. Here's where the kiddos stayed. Look at that. And they had some little ones here. at one time or another. Now, they think the kitchen was downstairs. Let me start that again. They think the kitchen was downstairs, although there was a period in the 30s where you had a split here where you had an innkeeper at the top, at the bottom, and his assistant up top. And if you want to see how they cooked, on the old OK Duke stove. Look at that. So we've just walked out the residence, and here is the welcome to the Lighthouse. All 129 steps. You're going to walk the steps that were built in 1872. Oh, this is interesting. This kind of gives the original architectural drawings of the house. Neat. That's neat. Okay, here we go. Joan will be back in a minute. Here we go. Here's the first landing. And you can look out the window. We'll do this a couple times. 108 steps to go. Out the next landing. Leaving the second landing, 87 steps to go. I can't imagine what it would have been like to carry 5 gallons of kerosene up here. That had to be quite the task. Third landing, 66 steps to go. Fourth landing. Oh, now we're starting to get the views. Look at this. Oh, wow. Look at that, fourth landing. Pretty. 45 steps to go. Here's an interesting tidbit. The lightkeeper had to come to the top every 75 minutes and rewind the weights that caused the light to go around. How about that? 24 steps to go. All right, I've made it to the top. And let's walk around and look at this view. There's the grounds. Innkeeper's house. And then just look at this. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Gonna be a tad windy, so put up with me. Look at this. What a view. Look at that. There's the big bridge. And right over there, you can see a little shopping district we're going to go to. What a view. Look at this, and look at the oaks. That is something, isn't it? One more look before we go down the steps. Some kind of pretty, y'all. Look at this. Just gorgeous. That's where the fuel oil was kept. And on the other side of this sign is where the original tower was that was blown up back in the 1861, I think. But just look at this. Wow, what a peaceful, tranquil place. I think that's Little St. Simon's Island, but those of you who know can add a comment. Not 100% sure. Pretty, pretty, pretty. So as Joan and I go to see some other sights, I'm gonna leave this beautiful view of this lighthouse. That's right, folks. That's some kind of pretty.